We provide a 12-month software apprenticeship.
And get picked up by a big tech company.
What Mike has built and what this team brings is it's AAA class.
And I thought, this is the model that we're going to grow Genus.
I would first look to contract out to Creating Coding Careers, where you're going to get experienced technology. The pipeline into your company for long-term growth.
So you're better off starting where you can groom and mentor and shape, people for your organization.
I've worked with coding teams for many years, and this was the first one that just picked up where we were and started continuing like they built it.
We're happy to have them in the building and see what they're developing. This is the second location. They started out with us in our building in Escondido.
Creating Coding Careers has this incredible combination of subject matter expertise in the technology field and what is actually required to do the job, as well as this network of employer partners who believe in the mission on changing what technologists
All right, good afternoon, everybody. Happy Friday. My name is Alex Martinez from Creating Coding Careers, where we help aspiring developers transition into ServiceNow and web developer roles. And I am joined by my co-host, Deontay Hall Collins.
Hello and welcome, tech wizards, coding enthusiasts, career climbers, all the folks out there looking to get up in the ecosystem. Just want to start off by saying, hey, I know you guys see a picture, but don't worry, that's because of this connection. We're going to keep it rolling here, right? I'm thrilled to be here sharing this virtual stage with all of you. I may not know much about this speaker just yet, but trust me, my curiosity is at an all-time high. I'm as eager as all of you to delve into his journey, uncover his secrets, and let's learn how he's making his impact in the coding world. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Steve Reeves. Over to you, Steve.
Good afternoon. Thanks, guys. It's a pleasure to be here with you.
It's a pleasure to have you, man. Welcome to our live session. Thank you for being here. I guess we'll go ahead and kick it off with, your journey into tech and how you were introduced to the ServiceNow platform.
Sure. So this is kind of a long story. I'll try not to drag on, and if I do, please pull me along here. So, I'll take you back to like 1994, right? That's when I got my first computer. I was about 10 years old at the time, and I was kind of quickly introduced to an application called Visual Basic, right? So Visual Basic is a programming tool. It came out many years ago, right? But allowed you to build little applications for your computer. And I fell in love with it. I became completely immersed in Visual Basic and was building all kinds of little tools on the computer. Over time, the next couple of years, that slowly dovetailed into me building websites, right? And it started off with just kind of, very basic HTML websites, and then eventually found myself using PHP content management systems, tools like Drupal and Joomla and WordPress, which can all help you spin up a website, a robust website, really quickly. I continued to do that stuff, throughout my teen years. I'll share with you guys that I ended up actually dropping out of high school. I followed a bit of an unorthodox path, and I think it's important to call out because I know that you work with a lot of folks who come from diverse backgrounds, and I will just throw out or extend the olive branch if anyone's listening in and they've kind of gone through that experience and kind of find challenges in their career, please reach out to me. I'm more than happy to speak with anyone and help anyone along their journey. But nonetheless, so I dropped out of high school, which was a little bit challenging to recover from, frankly. I took a year off and started attending college, right? I actually attended college for a short period of time and had to leave there as well due to financing challenges. And after college, found myself in a weird spot where I was working a lot of low skill jobs, really just trying to make ends meet, right? Of course, trying to repay some sky high student loans. After working, a series of low wage jobs, I decided that, I wanted to try to find a career in IT, something that I could build off of. And I thought that with the experience I had kind of growing up and doing this stuff in my free time for fun, that I could, maybe use that to build off of and find a real job in IT. This is back in the early 2000s. At the time, we were at this weird crossroads with the internet where you had a lot of companies who were hiring online. You also had a lot of companies who were not hiring online, right? So you might walk into a company and say, hey, I'd like to apply for a job, and they might tell you to go on their website and apply. You might call a company and say, hey, I'm interested in a position, and they might say, well, print out your resume and come drop it off at the front desk, right? So it was a really interesting time, and I was kind of following both approaches. And I remember pretty clearly, actually, picking up the phone book, right? This is back when you'd still actually get a phone book, probably one of the last few years that they were giving them out. And, at the time I was living in Boston, and I called every relevant business in Boston, in the city of Boston and the suburbs, looking for a job. And I didn't just call these companies once, I called them twice and three times. Some of them were actually telling me, stop calling, we don't have a job for you, right? But I was relentless in my pursuit. And out of all the numbers I called, one called me back and they said, why don't you come down and talk to us? And it was a small computer repair shop in Boston. And the way that this computer repair shop worked is that they would get work farmed out to them from large companies like Staples or Office Max. If you called them and you said, hey, my computer's broken, that work would get farmed out to this business in Boston. And then I would show up at your home or your business to do whatever work needed to be done for your computer. So that was really my first foray into IT and my first real IT job. I worked at that job for about a year and a half. The business ended up closing because they weren't able to maintain profitability. But that was my segue into my next role, which was a contract position with a company called Keyspan out of Boston. Keyspan was an old energy supplier. They're no longer with us. They've been purchased a few times by different companies. But during that project, I was in a long-term contract for a PC and laptop refresh, right? And I had plenty of experience with PCs outside of an enterprise environment, but this was my first real experience learning and understanding how PCs, laptops, and servers are configured in an enterprise environment. And while it wasn't a very high skill job in IT, I really learned a lot, during that opportunity. That opportunity dovetailed into another opportunity working on a help desk at a financial company in Boston. And not to make it a very long story, but two jobs later, I found myself with Staples Corporate. And I found myself in a process-related role. So I was working as a change manager. Unbeknownst to me, before coming to Staples, they were an early adopter of ServiceNow, right? So they had ServiceNow way before everyone else, and they were actually rolling it out to all of their business units before everyone else. So they had HR, on ServiceNow. They had legal on ServiceNow way before HRSD or any kind of business-specific modules were released. In fact, this predates scoped applications, right? So I was with Staples for a little over a year. During the time that I was there, a really good colleague of mine, Chuck Kelly, can't say enough good things about Chuck Kelly. He left Staples, went to a company called PerkinElmer. And he called me when he got there, and he asked me if I'd be interested in coming over to help set up and run ITIL processes, kind of core ITIL processes. So high priority incident, change management, knowledge management, problem management. And of course, I jumped at the opportunity. I got to PerkinElmer. I was there for about 2 weeks. Unbeknownst to me, they were just wrapping up an implementation for ServiceNow. I walked into a kind of a random meeting one day, and what we were deciding in this meeting is who was going to own ServiceNow post-implementation. I wasn't aware of that, and so I walked in the meeting kind of blind and was quickly assigned ServiceNow, right, post-implementation. So I was essentially the platform owner, right, responsible for not only the ITIL processes, but also the platform itself. So that was my first taste of kind of owning ServiceNow at working with professional services, and then getting into some of the administration and development as well. I preface the story going back to the Visual Basic stuff, right? Once I got into ServiceNow and I started doing some of the administrative and development work, I became super nostalgic on the platform. It brought me right back to being a kid again, playing with Visual Basic, and I got so excited about it, and I've been able to maintain that excitement for the platform for the past 10 years. I've been working with ServiceNow, so that's kind of my journey into IT and how I got into ServiceNow.
Wow, man, that right there is like a very inspiring story, man, of how you can go from like, kind of high school dropping out, man, going into college, all those like beginning, like you said, the basics, and then like leveling up, man. That just lets you know, you can start anywhere and kind of keep going. So I just want to know kind of what were your experiences becoming like a ServiceNow partner? Like what did it take to get that up and going?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And so for the folks listening in, at one point, so I was with PerkinElmer for a couple of years, and shortly after, actually, I started my own company called Corvus, which I've just restarted recently, right? So with Corvus, I became a ServiceNow partner, and that really opened the floodgates for me. I did a ton of consulting work, implementations, migrations, custom applications, you name it, I did it during that time. So in order to become a ServiceNow partner, at least back when I was one, the process really was registering a company, right, in your state. You have to apply for an EIN number from the IRS, right? It's basically a number that identifies your business. After that, you need to get what's called a DUNS number. So there's an organization called Dun & Bradstreet. They're basically like a credit rating agency for businesses, right? So you've got your EIN number, you apply for a DUNS number, right? You give them your EIN, your personal information, social, etc. They do kind of a background check on you. I think to get my DUNS number, maybe it took 3 or 4 weeks. Once they come back and they build you out a profile and give you your DUNS number, you've got everything you need to apply for the partner program. So there is a website on the ServiceNow.com. There's a page on there, I should say, that walks you through applying for the ServiceNow partner program. When I applied, there were three flavors of the partner program. There was a technical, a sales, and a third one that's escaping my mind now. Last I checked, I think there's a few more that have been added. But that's really the process. You go ahead and apply for that partner program. Someone will reach out to you after you apply, kind of talk through what you're looking to do, and then if everything lines up, you'll be accepted into the partner program. Once you're there, you've got access to all kinds of goodies to help you really build out your business and deliver value to ServiceNow customers.
Nice.
So Steve, I'm looking at your LinkedIn profile, and I see that you started working for a company called PTC, then you went to Panera Bread, then you went to Chewy, and I'd wonder, can you take us back? Like, what was it like? What was it like actually getting into those companies? What was the job search like? And I wonder if that kind of motivated you to create your brainchild, SNRoles.com.
Sure. Yeah. So there's a lot to unpack there. So PTC was actually a really awesome company to work with. Great group of people over there. At PTC, I was super fortunate, right? I had a relatively flexible schedule. A lot of the folks who were on my team were offshore. So it gave me the ability to kind of ebb and flow my time as needed, which is how I was able to kind of run a Corvus concurrently with working at PTC for a portion of time, right? So I was with PTC for 3 years, right? Before heading off to, I think it was, now I can't remember. I think it was Panera after that. But frankly, I have to tell you, Alex, the job search, once I was in PTC, right, with the experience behind me from PerkinElmer, owning the platform there, I had a Corvus on the resume as well, and the work that I had done at PTC. At that point, I'll tell you, things started to change in terms of I didn't really need to go looking for work. Work started really looking for me, right? Wow. So my experience post PTC, during my time at PTC, was just kind of like a barrage of recruiters pinging me through LinkedIn with different job opportunities. It's right, and it's such a paradigm shift, right, to what I was accustomed to, kind of growing up and kind of fighting to get my foot in the door, and then suddenly you've got like this jobs become plentiful. So I think that having some ServiceNow experience obviously plays into that, right? Because folks are always looking for individuals with experience. But that's really how it worked for me, Deontay, is that, once I was into PTC, recruiters are just reaching out to me proactively. And frankly, every opportunity I've had since then has been one that people have reached out to me proactively on.
Nice.
Yeah, so I was reading one of the posts where you mentioned that your motivation between SNRoles.com was to help pretty much all the people that are breaking into the ecosystem for the first time. And as you know, a lot of our audience members are either apprentices, pre-apprentices, people coming out of the Skill Bridge program, and people coming out of the Next Gen program from ServiceNow, and they're trying to enter the ecosystem for the first time. Would you say SNRoles will start now to kind of target to help these people kind of get their foot in the ecosystem?
Yeah, absolutely, Alex. Yeah. So, and you're 100% right. The motivation for SNRoles really came out of me asking myself, how can I help the ServiceNow community? There's a lot of folks out there who are really doing awesome work, right? In terms of sharing technical things or best practices. There's a myriad of contributors to the ServiceNow community out there, and a lot of the ideas that I had to contribute, I felt like those were already being filled by other people, and I wasn't sure how much of something new I could deliver. I was really sitting around thinking about it pretty hard, and I said, I've been seeing just a ton of people on LinkedIn, new ServiceNow professionals, and how can I help them, right? And I see a lot of folks looking for jobs, so I thought, why not build a job board? Why not try to aggregate all the ServiceNow jobs from across the internet into one place that's easy for people to query and find what they're looking for, right? Because when you're on the job search, it's a little crazy. You really have to be on top of it every day. You want to make sure you apply right away, that your resume is in front of someone else's. So I thought that this could be really helpful for folks. In tandem, I think that the way that you kind of put that data together, you put it together in a special way, it makes it even more impactful for folks looking for a job, particularly in the ServiceNow space. And so I do have a ton of new features that I'm working on for the site. Some I've shared already on LinkedIn. So there's a candidate portal in the works presently, a few other really cool features that are coming in terms of filtering data. I don't want to give too much detail on it, but I assure everyone listening, if you stay tuned to the website, when it comes, I think you'll be super happy with that new functionality.
Nice. And that kind of goes into exactly what I was going to ask you next, which is like pretty much the features of SNRoles and kind of like what features you had on the horizon, like, the new things. I know you can't talk, about certain things, but if you can give us any sauce of like, the next things you kind of see cooking up for SNRoles.
Yeah, so I mean, the next thing, which I've talked about before, is the candidate portal. I think that's going to be super impactful, right? So I'm going to create a place for candidates to log in, create a profile, update their resume, and kind of give them a way to showcase themselves to different organizations that are posting jobs on the site. The other piece there, which I think is going to be really, really helpful for folks, and I want to give a shout out to some of the people who have been messaging me lately with ideas for the website. I really appreciate them, and we'll action them. But filtering the data, the way that data is filtered and presented for particular groups of individuals that are looking for jobs is going to be really helpful. And I know I'm being very vague there. It's intentional, of course, but that functionality I think is going to be really helpful for folks.
Nice, man. Are there any like stats that you may be willing to share? I also see a comment. I see one of the comments is, kind of what's the success rate for new ServiceNow people getting jobs through SNRoles? Even if you aren't able to share something that specific, are there any stats you may be willing to share, positive stats off the SNRoles?
I don't have any stats per se, right? Because it's an aggregator, right? It's an aggregator of job listings. So folks would apply for it, so it may go through like a Greenhouse or Smart Recruiter, some type of internal recruiting tool, or it could go through a website like LinkedIn. So I don't have too much data on success rates there, but
I guess I should say, I'm sorry
Go
about
ahead.
that. I guess I should
No
say
worries.
positions that are, high in demand, like average salary for certain
Oh,
roles.
sure.
Just you kind of seeing, kind of touching all of it, building a site like that. I know you've kind of seen the numbers and seen certain things like that. So,
Yeah, so let's talk about salary actually. So salary is huge, super important. It's top of everyone's mind when they're looking for a job, right? So there are 2 salary surveys that I'm familiar with that have been released for ServiceNow. The first one was released by Travis Tolson. He has a company called Code Creative. If you check out codecreative.com, I'm pretty sure his salary survey is on there. It might be from 2021, I think, but I think the numbers there are still somewhat relevant. There's another large recruiting company, their name's escaping me at the moment. They just released a 2023 salary survey. And I'm sure if you Googled, 2023 ServiceNow salary survey, they would come right up. You do need to enter some information to get the salary survey. You can probably just enter like a throwaway email and get that. That's got a ton of really solid information for ServiceNow salaries. They cover the US, Canada, Australia, UK. They cover, what the salaries look like working for a ServiceNow customer, what the salaries look like working for a ServiceNow partner, and then they cover regional salaries as well, right? So, an employer in Florida may pay a little bit less than an employer in Boston, just due to cost of living
yeah.
differences. But I highly recommend looking at those surveys and checking out those numbers. I would always also say take those numbers with a grain of salt. A lot of companies may offer a slightly lower salary, but may have a really phenomenal benefits package that offers ancillary things like performance bonuses or RSUs, things like that to help give you a total comp package as opposed to just a high salary.
Yeah.
To answer your second question, right, jobs that are in demand. I think
Yeah.
that a lot of people think, just in terms of like a straight line, well, administrator, developer, architect. That's kind of like the natural progression, I think, when folks think about kind of working in the platform. But there's a number of other roles that are related to the platform that I think are important for folks to consider, right? So those include support and help desk analyst roles, business analyst roles, technical analysts, QA, testing roles, project analysts, project managers, scrum masters, and people managers, right? The more developers, administrators, architects you have, the more of all those other things you need too. So, as ServiceNow grows, all of these other job roles grow as well.
So for everybody who's in the audience, I was going to say, if you have any suggestions for a platform like SNRoles.com, please drop them into the DM. I'm sure Steve would love to hear your suggestions. We have a question from the crowd here, Steve. This is Jerry W. Jerry's asking, is SNRoles jobs targeted primarily in the U.S.?
Jerry, that's a great question. It's not actually. So SNRoles.com, I'm super excited to share. It covers ServiceNow jobs in 58 countries. So I cover every continent on the planet. And I would also just say, if you find a ServiceNow job that's not on SNRoles, let me know, and I'll figure out how to make sure it gets there.
Nice.
So suggestion I might have would be job search tips. I wonder if you have any job search tips for all the newcomers getting into ServiceNow.
I have a lot of job search tips for sure. So I think the first thing that's most important is just making sure you've got a good resume, right? The resume is something that someone's going to look at and they're going to judge you on it. It's got to be well written, and it's got to convey what value you can add to the organization, and it's got to convey it pretty quickly, right? So I think that I don't know what the statistics are, but I think the average time spent looking at a resume is a very short period of time, right? So you want to make sure that you get someone's attention right away. I would recommend that folks use a professional resume service to help get a review and update your resume. With that said, those can be kind of expensive. And I know I've seen Mike talk about ChatGPT before. I love ChatGPT. I'm a huge proponent of it. And I'll tell you what, put your resume into ChatGPT and it'll give you something amazing right back, right? And of course, you don't just take that and make it your resume. You tweak it a little bit, but ChatGPT can be a nice tool to get you really close to a professional looking resume without that high cost associated with it. The second piece of advice I would have for folks is to build out your LinkedIn profile. Really build it out well. Get a professional picture. If you can't afford to go get a professional picture, do your best to take one at home. Get suited up and stand in a nice spot and make sure you get a good picture. Put it up there. It's very important. It's also important to open up your profile and connect with people. I'll share with you guys that I've got several thousand connections on LinkedIn. I think probably 5,000 or 6,000 of those connections are all recruiters, technical recruiters, right? So it's really important to reach out and connect with people. LinkedIn exams, right? I don't think they carry a ton of weight. I don't think anyone's saying, well, have you taken a LinkedIn exam? But I think that they really can help you. If you go and take them, they're like 30 questions, multiple choice, probably takes 10 or 15 minutes to get through one. And do the ones that right? And it's going to show a little checkbox on your LinkedIn profile. So I think I've taken a few. JavaScript was one of them. Someone can quickly go look at my profile and say, hey, Steve took the JavaScript test, he passed it. I don't know how much weight that's going to carry for someone who's looking at my profile, but it can't hurt, right? So that's another key one. Let's see, I talked about the recruiters. The other piece here that I would share is that, if you really want a job, don't be afraid to reach out to HR personnel and recruiters at the company that you've applied to. My secret here is, and I'm sharing with you all, is that when I apply for a job and I really want it, I will type into the LinkedIn search. I will look for every recruiter, talent acquisition, HR professional at that company, and I'll send every single one a connection invite along with a personalized message. Wow. And the message will introduce myself, let them know I'm interested in this role, and then I'll ask them if they can direct me to the recruiter who's responsible for recruiting for the role, right? As I'm sure you both know, and folks on the call, when you submit your resume into an applicant tracking system, sometimes you can kind of get auto rejected, right? Or maybe someone, in another department is doing kind of a quick review, and there's one little bullet point that's missing, and so you get rejected, right? So I always recommend that you reach out, knock on people's doors, sometimes bang on people's doors, right? And get them to really take a look at you. And in my own experience, this has worked a number of times. A number of times it hasn't worked, but because it has worked, I always recommend that people do it. Yeah, so, and sorry, Deontay, I have one more for you. So the last piece of advice here I have is to really just check job boards daily, right? Sometimes you'll be a perfect match for a job, but if you don't submit your resume first, you could be 10, 15 resumes behind. And typically companies aren't going to interview 15 people for a job, right? They're going to interview the first 5 or 10 and try to pick someone. So the last piece of advice is check job boards daily. Check them at 7 a.m., 12 p.m., 4 p.m. Always be ready to submit your resume out there and try to get ahead of the crowd. So that would be my all-encompassing advice for folks looking for jobs.
Great
Those
advice.
are gems, man. Yeah, gems.
We do have another question, Steve. This is coming from the crowd. So you did share with us how you started Corvus and how you're actually going to start, I guess, putting a little bit more time into it more recently. Anna asks, would you encourage entrepreneurs to become a ServiceNow partner?
Well, I really think that depends on what you'd like to do, right? If you want to start a business and you want to, maybe start your own consulting company and go out and do work with ServiceNow customers, doing implementations and different types of work, then I think that would be a great thing to pursue. With that said, I would think you'd probably want to have some experience, right, before you go down that path. But if it's something that aligns with what you're looking to do, why not? Absolutely apply.
Nice. I think this is one of those questions that I love seeing different people's take on, and I love seeing different just kind of seeing everybody explain it in their own way. So we have little Charles Alexander, I think that's his name, said, sorry if I come off unknowingly, which you didn't, man. What is ServiceNow and the point of it? He said, I'm new to it. So how would you explain ServiceNow to a brand new person?
Sure. So, it's interesting. I always go back to my first experience with ServiceNow. In my first experience with ServiceNow, I would tell you that ServiceNow is an IT service management tool, right? And that's really how it was born. Now I would tell you that it's an enterprise platform, right? It's an enterprise platform for task-based service delivery. We have relational databases, so it's fantastic for storing data and managing data. I think I would just describe it just like that. This is an enterprise task-based service management system where we can maintain relevant, enterprise data, operational enterprise data, and that covers all business groups, right? From IT to legal to HR to compliance. Everyone in the company can be supported by the platform.
That was a really good explanation.
I got another question here for you. So it's more of a statement. It says, I come across a lot of jobs saying entry level, but they want 3 years of experience. I would love to hear any advice you have on this.
Yeah, my recommendation is that a lot of job descriptions you see out there are written by folks who really don't know what they're looking for. I think probably the most job descriptions are copy and pasted of other job descriptions, right? Sometimes I look at ServiceNow job descriptions and they have things that are not relevant at all to the platform. When people are asking for a certain level of experience, right? I think what they're saying there is they want someone who's going to be able to come in and execute the job. If you feel like you can do that, cross that 3 years off in your brain and apply for the job. And frankly, my recommendation to anyone is that don't exclude yourself from the job. Don't look at the job description and say, I'm not good for that. Look at the job description and say, I'm not a perfect fit, but I'm going to apply anyway. Let them look at your resume and let them exclude you, right? Because you don't know if you don't try. And another piece is, I think defining success, looking for a job, is that, in order to get that success, you've got to increase your failure rate, right? The more you fail, the more you're guaranteed to succeed. If you never fail, you're almost never guaranteed to succeed, right? So I would absolutely say ignore the years of experience. If you're confident that you can execute, go ahead and apply, and articulate that to them. If they ask for a cover letter or anything like that, I would articulate that in the cover letter field.
Absolutely. Great advice. Yeah. And that was Mish. That was Mish Mills, by the way. Thank you. The great question, Mish. Deontay, were you going to ask?
I'm just looking in the comments here, making sure we have, any other. If you guys have any other questions or anything that you may want to ask Steve, make sure to drop it in. This is really, really good gems, though, Steve. Really appreciate this. We actually just got a question that came in, so let's see. We got. I can't see exactly what user it is, but it says, can you please give us some information on what technology stack and backend was used to build this website? I'm assuming this user is talking about the SNRoles. Am I correct in understanding that the RSS feed is limited to the 10 latest posts?
Sure. So the website is actually built using WordPress. It's built using a few publicly available plugins, right? But it's also running a plugin that I built custom for the site. That helps integrate to an API and do some data imports and data transformation as well. I'll have to look into the RSS feed. I don't know off the top of my head, but I can figure that one out for you. I'm not sure who submitted. Obviously, it just says LinkedIn user, but if you want to drop me a message on LinkedIn, I can get back to you with that info.
Thanks, Steve. And then we have another one right here from Jerry W. Oh, sorry about that, Alex. We have another one right here from Jerry. It says, is there dedicated communities that provide advice and guidance for platform owners?
Sure. I mean, I would say yes to that. I mean, the first that comes to mind is the ServiceNow community. It's not really geared specifically towards platform owners, but I think that there is so much information on the ServiceNow community, not just the community, but the ServiceNow blog as well, right? Which is where a lot of folks post some really cool info. There's so much there for you. And so I would say that if you had any questions around the platform or maybe best practices as a platform owner, if you were to put that out there, you'd certainly get a lot of good responses. So I would push the ServiceNow community, the ServiceNow blog. They obviously have a presence on YouTube as well. And then beyond ServiceNow, there's just a number of ServiceNow partners and different groups who put videos out on YouTube and have websites. So I think that there's a large array of resources out there for you, Jerry.
Thanks, Steve. We got another question. This is from little Charles Alexander, one of our pre-apprentices. We were actually talking about this earlier this week, and I'd love to hear your answer to this, Steve. What are great ways to seek mentorship in the tech industry, maybe even the ServiceNow industry more specifically? Yeah,
I'll tell you the one thing about the ServiceNow community that I just love, and it's totally different from every other group that I've been a member of or community is just how open everyone is to helping each other. I haven't met a rude person yet in the ServiceNow community. Everyone is just like leaning in and how can I help you? And, what can we do together, right? So I think the best way to seek mentorship is just to ask, reach out to people, and I'll put myself out there for you guys right now. If there's anyone on the call who wants to chat about anything ServiceNow related, career-wise, reach out to me. I can tell you right now, I can think of at least 5 or 10 people who are pretty popular on LinkedIn in the ServiceNow community who love when folks reach out to them who are new, asking questions and stuff, because they get to kind of help guide you on your career, right? So I think that it's, folks who are in that mentor position, I think are excited for mentees, and mentees are excited to, get a mentor. So I would say just reach out, message people, say, hey, I've seen some of the stuff you're doing. I think it's really cool. I'd love to learn from you. Can we set up some time to chat? And I don't think you'll find anyone who tells you no.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
you saying that is so true. I've asked people to come on as guest speakers and kind of share their journeys and advice, and I've never been turned down once. Great people in the ServiceNow community are fantastic. I'd love to hear any final advice you have for all the people just getting into the ServiceNow ecosystem. Steve, any last words?
Yeah, I guess my only advice for folks would be just to consider your possibilities, right? I think that there's a lot of good infographics out there. They talk about life and how life works, and everyone thinks it just goes in a straight line, right? And you've seen those infographics where it's like straight and it squiggles all around, and finally they get to their destination, but it wasn't what they thought it was going to be. And I think that sometimes, we have that in ServiceNow. I think sometimes, like for example, I have a family member who went through, did the ServiceNow training, got certified, and is having challenges now trying to break into that administrator and developer role, right? And there's only so many to go around. Someone else mentioned earlier the years of experience people are looking for. So my recommendation would be don't exclude, ServiceNow administrator, developer, adjacent roles, right? I mentioned a few earlier in the call. ITIL related roles, for example, change manager, incident manager, configuration manager, knowledge manager. These roles will get you into a company that has ServiceNow, right? And now it's just between you and reaching out to a developer and saying, hey, how can I help you implement this faster for knowledge or for CMDB or for change management? And I'll tell you that when ServiceNow developers see someone who's tenacious and who wants to try to take on some of the development, we don't shy away from that. It's like, absolutely, please help me, So so if you can get yourself into a company that has ServiceNow, maybe you're not as an administrator or a developer, you've positioned yourself really well to get into that at that company, right? So again, there's the configuration manager, knowledge manager, problem, QA testing roles, technical analysts, business analysts. I think a lot of the folks coming out of next gen, particularly SkillBridge, right, have like fantastic experience, technical analysis, just general analysis skills that would be complete shoo-ins for business analysts, technical analysts. So that would be my advice: is just try not to just target one type of role, but be open to multiple roles that can get you closer to the platform and help get you to where you want to be. So that would be my my final advice.
Solid advice. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Steve. Definitely a gem, man. Thank you so much, Steve.
Absolutely. Thanks, guys. I appreciate it.
Everybody, thank you for joining us this afternoon. Looking forward to seeing you guys next Friday. Everybody have a great weekend. Deontay, you have any final words for us?
No, just want to, like I said, like you already said, thank you everybody for joining in. Thanks for all the gems, Steve. I encourage everybody to go and check out SNRoles and go and check out some of the resources, the ServiceNow community he was just speaking of, and a lot of the different things that were touched on here. Definitely gems. So just thank you so much.
Yep. Thank you, Steve. Appreciate everybody joining us.
Thanks,
today.
guys.
Everybody have a great weekend. We'll see you all next Friday.
See you guys.